Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Establish the Collection. I'm Cody Main, joined as always by my co-host with a beer in hand, it looks like, Gary Hartman. Gary, how's it going, buddy?
Cody, it's good. It's good. I'm still letting myself go post-wedding. I'm telling myself February 1st, I'm going to get back on track with the healthy lifestyle, but a couple more days of just eating and drinking whatever the hell I want, basically. But I'm good, man. This is our Patrick Ewing episode 33, a man near and dear to my heart. But I want to say, am I on the line with Cody Main, FSWA nominee for Fantasy Writer of the Year? Because Mazel Tov, as my people would say to you, Cody Main, well deserved. As Levitan said on his solo pod today, truly well deserved. Your showdown articles are some of the nerdiest spreadsheet version stuff that happens all year. And so well done, man. Congratulations, seriously.
I really appreciate that. That's the greatest compliment I can get is whenever Levitan calls me a showdown virgin, whenever anyone else picks that up and calls me a spreadsheet virgin, it just really rings true. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. I obviously wasn't expecting it. But to get the notifications start streaming through on Twitter, and then some of the names that I mentioned with, Pat Mayo and TJ Hernandez, really awesome. Really cool just to kind of be recognized, the hard work and just grind, as as everyone that listens to this show and follows along with all the ETR content, we are just grinding our cocks off 24/7, 365. Yeah, it was a great honor. So really appreciate the folks at FSWA, and hopefully we can bring it home. I honestly have no idea how this process works whatsoever. I don't know if there's some sort of voting process or if they just choose a winner, but regardless, it's been a ton of fun. We've got a few showdown slates left, obviously the big one with the Super Bowl coming up, but should be a ton of fun.
You mean the Pro Bowl? You were
oh my God, don't even get me started. We can talk about the Pro Bowl on an upcoming episode, because there'll be some hobby names we can talk about. We can tie all that together. But man, Pro Bowl showdown, episode. if you guys really want to degen it up with a DFS content in a DFS contest that has a ton of edge, Pro Bowl showdown is where it's at.
Absolutely. And really exciting stuff. If it is a voting process, we'll figure that out, and we will be pumping the Cody Main votes in from the ETR, the ETC community. But yeah, really exciting stuff.
All right, and enough pumping of my bags here. We had a massive sporting weekend. Some might say one of the best ever. Hobby names galore. Everyone was making noise. Social media was buzzing. Drama was in the air. Drama is still in the air. So Gary, what in the world's going on with F1 royalty Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, man. So Lewis Hamilton, I mean, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about obviously the heartbreaking loss, maybe the Fugazi loss, if you will, for Lewis Hamilton at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix when Max Verstappen, for whether by hook or by crook, won the drivers' championship. But since then, it has been radio silence from Lewis Hamilton. Not a word about anything. Basically what does that do? That starts speculation like anything else. It's kind of the opposite of what's going on with Tom Brady right now, where he's very vocal about the fact that, hey, I have a lot of thinking to do, family's here, blah, blah, blah. People are drawing the same conclusions with Lewis Hamilton that, hey, maybe this is it for him. But because he's been so radio silent, there's a lot of murmurs, a lot of rumblings. I personally don't think that's what's going on, but the F1 world is kind of like the NBA in the sense that it is a reality show. It is always drama filled, and it looks like this is the story that people seem to grasp onto. If you just Google Lewis Hamilton speculation, Lewis Hamilton quiet, whatever it is, you'll get a million articles. But it's worth bringing up because he's been with Mercedes since 2013, so we're going on. Like this will be his 9th or 10th season. He's obviously had won, however many straight championships. I don't think it would be any way for him to go out, obviously coming on that loss. And I don't think he'd want to. But, it's possible that he knows that this next year's Mercedes car won't be as good. I don't think he wants to come back to a season knowing that he doesn't really have a chance to win. Now, that's all speculation on anyone's part. No one really knows, except the people in those buildings, what their expectations are out of the 2022 cars. But what we do know is that the regulations around them are expected to make parity in the sport really appear and make competition much more fierce. So if he doesn't think that Mercedes has the edge that they've had in the past, maybe it's something he really is thinking about. And if it is, obviously he still retires as the best driver of all time. It opens up things for both Max Verstappen to really solidify himself as the alpha of the sport, but moreover, I think it does interesting things for his card hobby, because we talked about how this 2020 Topps was really the first year of F1, and I mean, think about it, if it was a one and done for the GOAT, what that would do. It would make me really regret selling my one high-end Lewis Hamilton card, is what it would do. But yeah, no, it's just something to monitor here. I'm not buying it necessarily, but definitely something to monitor as speculation runs rampant around Lewis Hamilton.
And you don't want to go crazy overreacting by making speculative purchases or selling at this time with this type of stuff. But would be a great news for everyone involved, really the three main parties involved: George Russell, Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton, just with as you mentioned, the scarcity aspect with Hamilton's cards, and then kind of opening up the door for Verstappen, of course, and then this next generation with George Russell and baby Lando, a guy that we talked about on previous podcasts. But it's coming up, man. March 18th, I believe, we're getting underway with the Formula One racing calendar. Crazy, so it is topical. Obviously, some jokes thrown in here, just in the sense that we can't kick off a show without mentioning F1 with what happened in the NFL this weekend. But it is topical. F1 is coming around the corner, and just stuff to prepare for as we approach March and the racing calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I'll say there is George Russell, man, it will be the guy that I think would benefit the most. Verstappen's kind of solidified, but if Russell's stepping into that the A seat instead of the B seat for Mercedes, already one of the best young drivers in the sport, but to step up to the construction championships, the Mercedes did win the construction championship despite Max winning the driver's championship. They are, considered the king of the sport still, as from a team perspective, and he'd be the number one driver on that, his rookie class in the first perennial tops class. So, I'm very invested in George Russell. So, I wouldn't complain from that perspective, but I don't want to see Lewis hang it up, man. He's not done. He needs to come back and win a couple more championships, because I know he has it in him.
Not just as we're getting into the sport, we can't see one of the sport's best go away. So yes, hopefully Lewis comes back. Hopefully we get another fun racing season under our belts. But enough F1. We had an amazing, a truly historic NFL divisional round weekend, kicking it off with Cincinnati at Tennessee. Probably the least exciting game of the weekend, I guess. But we had one of the hobby's biggest names advance to the AFC Championship. Going to take on Patrick Mahomes, a guy that we'll get to here in a second. But, man, a 1916 defensive struggle that Evan McPherson kind of came away as the undisputed GOAT from that game. But Burrow's already seen some movement off of the divisional round win and heading into an AFC Championship game this early into his career. His Mosaic base PSA 10 is up a massive 124% over the last 30 days. Some higher-end stuff like his Contenders rookie auto is up 73% during that same span. So, just crazy. I know, Gary, this is a guy that you were recommending a lot this offseason, a guy that you're holding a lot of right now. Before we get into the game, just real quick, your stance on where we are at with Joe Burrow. What are you personally doing with Joe Burrow? And is he ever going to come down from these hobby highs that we're at right now?
Yeah, well, crazy to say that was the worst game of the weekend, right?
Yeah, right.
We'll get into that.
plenty of drama in that game.
Yeah,
as well.
Plenty of drama in that game. A lot of fun watching all four games. But yeah, man, really crazy that we came into the season with Justin Herbert being the darling of the hobby, the number one fantasy asset, the number one card asset from a quarterback perspective, and here we are heading into AFC Championship weekend, and who else is there but the number one overall pick, Joey B, Joe Burrow, just cruising along, airing it out, sacked 8 or 9 times, for tied playoff record. One of the only times that a team's had that many sacks and didn't win. And just the resiliency, man. That's what I think people are drawing to him alone, aside from the fact that he's just got the goods and is a great quarterback, but he's a winner, man, just a winner. And I think for those reasons, yeah, of course, we'll see dips like anything else with this stuff. But I think the Burrow floor has been has raised. And, I think that's here to stay for sure. As far as what I'm doing with Joe Burrow, I think you're in a pretty good spot if you have any Joe Burrow right now. You can really capitalize on this next week, sell out. I know I talked about some of the stuff I bought in the offseason. 2 of those cards were, like the white select field level prisms out of 35. I saw a couple of them on eBay that I really just pictured and identified as undervalued cards. Was able to get them for around one for $1,700, one for $1,800. I had them up for $4,000. One of them, I'm planning on holding the other. I had them one up for $4,000, so would have taken a nice 50% delta there. But the second that game ended, I started getting offers right around that floor. And I was like, well, I think I can do better here. So I
right.
raised the price quickly, $1,000. So I have it up for $5,000 right now on eBay, still getting offers around the price that I had it previously, but I'll let the speculation kind of run rampant a little bit heading into the game. And I'd expect to sell it sometime over the next week around that price. So, take the profit from my offseason buy and keep my other one. So that's where I'm at. Like, I'm selling some of my stuff. I'm holding the other because I think, I don't want to be left with no Burrow in my pocket in case he somehow pulls out this win and it does never go down. I'm not expecting him to the way Mahomes is playing. But I also do want to capitalize on the fact that we don't know the next time he'll be in the AFC Championship. We don't know the next time Joe Burrow will have this much hype surrounding him. I'm confident that it's a very strong long-term investment. But I do want to, kind of hedge, play the middle here a little bit where selling some, keeping some.
I think that was my biggest takeaway with them coming out victorious this weekend. This game, I did see them coming away victorious against Tennessee. This next one, I'm not so sure about. They're 7-point road favorites going into Arrowhead against this absolute juggernaut in Kansas City, who is going to be good on both sides of the ball, who I think can get after Joe Burrow once again. As you mentioned, 9 sacks last week. Man, the Tennessee Titans defensive line just seemed to be in the backfield on every play. I think that what you're doing makes sense. You're taking advantage of this natural hype heading into the AFC Championship weekend. Hopefully, you're able to sell that one, hold on to the next one, take profits off the table there, and then, man, do you see them coming away victorious? We could talk about the matchup here in a second. But do you see them coming away victorious? And if not, are we going to see that kind of that natural dip begin for Burrow into the offseason as they get bounced?
Yeah, definitely. I would be hard pressed to see them come away victorious in this matchup. Especially it just feels destined for Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl again after that just battle that we'll talk about in a couple minutes here. But in Arrowhead, it's a tall task. While Frank Clark and Chris Jones are healthy, we know that's what's, the vulnerability of this Bengals team is that offensive line. Zach Taylor and crew are doing a very good job scheming stuff for Burrow to get the ball out when he has the opportunity to, still figuring out ways with the speedy receivers to push the ball downfield, even under pressure. Burrow's doing a fantastic job creating time for himself when he can. But what I do not expect him to win this week. I don't expect to take massive dips no matter what, because as I said, I think a floor has risen here for Burrow. But it all depends on how it shakes out, and we'll talk about what happened with Josh Allen in a couple of minutes. But if you go out guns a blazing, and this game ends up being closer than expected, or if he really shows up on the biggest stage of his young career up to this point, I would expect the market to reflect that and either stay stagnant. If he pulls out a win, it's that thing's shooting up. So, keep that in mind. It's a 7-point dog. So whatever, whatever chance you think there is there, add that equation into your logic here with what to do with Burrow. But if he loses and loses handedly, and they lose like 30-12 or whatever, 30-14 or something like that, I would expect a natural dip. Just, people kind of weren't able to capitalize as much as they were, get off their positions a little bit heading into the offseason, but it wouldn't be anything major. I would expect it to stay around where it is right now, maybe just a little bit under.
Right. Now, on the flip side of that, if he goes out and beats Patrick Mahomes and takes care of business against whoever it may be, it's just, we're never going to see these prices come back to earth.
Yeah. And the other thing about that, then you have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl for people just to get so excited about grabbing Burrow. And, I mean, and that's the thing. This guy's in his second year. I mean, he was a little bit of an older rookie. Right? He's 25, I think. But still, I mean, his whole entire career ahead of him. As long as he stays healthy, hopefully, let's hope that he got his real catastrophic injury out of the way early in his career. Knock on wood. Sky's the limit. Let's get him some better offensive linemen this offseason. Now, we all kind of gave them flack for drafting Chase over Sewell or whatever it was last year. That was definitely the right decision. Right. And now, let's get him some protection, and let's see this thing keep growing for him. I want to have some crazy battles of him and Herbert, kind of the same way we saw Josh Allen and Mahomes go at it.
Agreed. Another defensive struggle on Saturday night, the first NFC divisional game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, marred by special team blunders once again for the Packers. Unfortunately, another matchup where a kicker came away as kind of the game saver, if you will, in Robbie Gould. I think from our perspective, what we're most focused on in this podcast, I am curious to see what this does to Rodgers' long-term legacy, right? If it will have a lasting impact on where he stands in the hobby. 4-time All-Pro, 3-time MVP, likely got a 4th on the way, 10-time Pro Bowler, got the 1 Super Bowl ring, but now he's 11-10 in his playoff career. He's come up short time and time again. I do wonder, especially as this next crop of young, talented quarterbacks, mostly in the AFC, take that next step. You got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, as we just talked about. I wonder in 5, 10, 15, 20 years where we will think about Aaron Rodgers as kind of his legacy in the hobby. Do you have any immediate takeaways after they lose to San Francisco?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thought. I mean, the thing on Rodgers' side here is that it seems like he's got a couple more seasons to take a shot at this thing, because clearly 2 MVPs in a row here, towards the back end of his career, playing as well as he ever has. So no reason to think that his skills are going anywhere. But let's not forget all the off-field stuff that I think turn some people off if you're just kind of looking for differentiators and reasons to buy or sell. And that's, then not taking into account everything you've just said, which is just, there's no denying the fact that he's come up short in the playoffs for the majority of his career. Now, thank God he has the one ring, because if he didn't, we'd be looking at this as Charles Barkley, as Dan Marino, a totally different stratosphere. We don't need to have that conversation because he does have the one ring, but his stuff has dipped, since Sunday. If you just look at his base 2005 tops, which is a pop of 2,200, it's a pretty good indicator of his market. That is down almost 20%, 19.3% over the last 2 weeks on 33 sales. So, and you see really in the last week is where it's taken the big dip. Started a couple weeks ago at almost $1,100 card, down to what card ladder value is at $797 now. So a real dip there. Not surprised. I think it's a decent time to pick up Burrow. Burrow. We were just talking about Burrow. I think it's a decent time to pick up Rodgers as we're heading into his offseason here. But again, similar to some of, like we talked about, the NBA trade candidate type of windows here, you got to be careful that we his name's about to pop up in the news really, really quickly. If news starts rumbling that he's quarterback in the Broncos team this coming year or something, with all those weapons, with a new coach and everything going on there, I think we see an immediate bump back into some of the numbers. Maybe not what we were seeing 2 weeks ago, but maybe we were seeing a week ago, somewhere in between the 800 and 1,200 range for this 2005 Topps PSA 10 card. So I do think you got a nice little window here, though, where we're going to still see this dip, I think, a little bit further. So, but long term, to answer your question, I think it's still pretty safe stuff. One of the top 5 or 10 quarterbacks of all time, no matter how you shake this out. I don't think people can talk too much about the playoff failures because he does have the ring. Like when we're talking legacy, when he puts on that gold jacket, I don't think it's going to be something that is brought up too much. So, I think if you're looking at this as an investment, if it's a PC thing, if you love Aaron Rodgers, I think you're still feeling pretty safe.
You mentioned going to Denver, and that'll be the offseason story. It's going to drive a lot of the offseason buzz around where he lands. Maybe this is a hot take, and I don't want to get into any, classic sports radio type stuff, but I think it's best if he stays in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I do.
I mean, we just mentioned all those AFC quarterbacks. You want to face Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow when you have potentially Tom Brady out, as we'll talk about in a second here, but you got Matthew Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo and some of these guys that just necessarily aren't competing on the level that these AFC quarterbacks are. If you go to Denver, then you're competing with 2 quarterbacks who are immediately on your level in Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I just think from a trying to get another ring perspective, I think Rodgers is best served staying in that division that he can win year in and year out.
Yeah, not to mention, it was really the special teams that left him down this past weekend, right? They had one of the best defenses in the league. Denver can have a pretty good defense too, but we like Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton just fine, but are any of them Devontae Adams? He has that built-in connection right there with maybe the best or number 2 or number 3 receiver in the league. It's a risky move to leave with that infrastructure that's set up with LaFleur and all the success they've had. Now they haven't been able to get over the hump. But yeah, I'm with you. If I'm him, I'm staying put. You compete again for one of those regular season MVPs again next year, and then, to take another shot at this playoff thing. Hopefully they fix their special teams, figure out some new strategies for the playoffs and take another stab at it. That's what I'm doing if I'm him.
All right, move on to Sunday, which is where the real fun begins. And my God, Tom Brady almost did it again. Down 27-3 at one point. Brady with some witchcraft or wizardry or whatever it was.
Or the Bucs back. He cursed Cam Akers. Yeah, something like
that. Unreal stuff that he's on the sidelines and somehow Cam Akers fumbles and all you can think about was, that was Brady. That was Brady.
Yeah.
42 seconds was all it took, though, for Matthew Stafford to drive him down the field, get Matt Gay in a field goal range. Matt Gay puts it through. I think the storyline here, before we talk about Brady, a guy that you mentioned in the offseason along in the same vein as someone like Ryan Tannehill, one of these vets that just necessarily hasn't gotten the hobby love for whatever reason. Stafford obviously playing in Detroit, not having much playoff success, but finally getting his flowers. 366 yards, 2 TDs. He'll take on the aforementioned 49ers for the third time this year in the NFC Championship game. First of all, what do you make of his performance, and where are we at with Matthew Stafford's hobby value?
Yeah, he's looked really good for a couple weeks now. And our friend Adam Levitan was saying on his pod today, or with Silva, whenever he really throws the ball like 30 plus times, he's going to be able to put up his numbers, especially in softer matchups. Like we know that's how you beat the Bucs. So yeah, I think, really good thing. This is exactly what we speculated in the offseason. It's coming to fruition here. We said, hey, he's in the best situation he's been in. The Rams have maybe one of the most talented rosters in football. No reason to think he can't finally make a run. And that's what we're seeing here. He's going to play in his first championship game next weekend. And I think that's really good for his market. I don't know how sustainable this is long-term, depending on what happens this week. Now, I think the Rams, do you know what they're favored by? It's got to be a couple.
I think they're 3.5.
3.5. That sounds about right.
They're technically at home, but do the Rams ever play a home game in SoFi Stadium?
Right.
Maybe if they don't sell tickets, which they're apparently trying to do, not selling tickets outside of a 100-mile radius.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
We'll see if they get a home field advantage. But yeah, I think they're favored by 3.5 over.
Yeah, and the Niners travel well, obviously, and it's in state and everything like that. But but we're seeing it. Same card we were just talking about with Rodgers just a couple years later, the 2009 paper tops. Pop of 139, 7 sales over the last 2 weeks, 75% growth. That thing started at $200 2 weeks ago. Now almost has peaked around 360, 370. So, not surprised to see that. I think I would not be surprised to see the Rams win this game in any way, in any way, especially the way Jimmy Garoppolo is struggling here a little bit. I don't see why this can't be a really strong investment piece now moving forward. Because the second that a ring is won, if he is able to pull that off, this enters a different stratosphere. So what you can do if you have Stafford stuff, I think you can continue to buy even at these increases. And then, play the win for this coming week. And then you speculate all leading up to the Super Bowl. You got 2 weeks to probably make some quick profit there. So if you're confident in the Rams this week, I think that's a pretty good play. Yes, happy for Stafford though. Good overall there. My only concern as far as a performance perspective is we're just talking about him putting up those fantasy type numbers in games that they have to throw and game environments that they have to throw. The Niners are going to want to run the ball in this game. What if pace plays down here? What if this game plays under? What if he has to only throw the ball 18 times, 20 times? What if he only puts up 180 yards and 2 touchdowns? Nothing crazy. That's kind of what would be my concern is what if he doesn't show out on the big stage from a statistical perspective? Does that hurt it at all? I wouldn't, I think if they win the game, he's probably okay, but just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, much more so than the Bengals Chiefs game. I think this game is more likely to turn into a rock fight, right? Where we don't see much fantasy value, not many fireworks. But again, if they're advancing to the Super Bowl, you're going to see a nice little bump in Stafford's market. Yeah, I am curious more long term. I still think, and of course, a ring would go a long way to helping solidify any sort of Hall of Fame case. Do you think he's outside looking in and the Hall of Fame long-term value? I think he's still got a ways to go, but he still has some playing time left in his career. Obviously, getting that first ring under his belt would go a long way in helping build a Hall of Fame campaign. Where are we at with long-term hobby value if Matthew Stafford is or is not Hall of Fame worthy?
Yeah, so let's see. The PFR, Pro Football Reference Hall of Fame monitor has him at almost 60. The average Hall of Fame quarterback is 104. So you're onto something. He is not necessarily there yet. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in. I think these guys, because at the end of the day, he's going to be as long as he goes another 4 or 5 seasons, even he'll be top 10 to 15 in most major passing categories. If he makes a Super Bowl, if he ends up in that thing and he at least makes a Super Bowl, I think he would be strongly considered. If he wins one, I think it puts him over the top. So I would expect him to get in still. Just based
and theoretically tied to McVay and Cup and maybe Beckham if they re-sign. And this offense, this nucleus in Los Angeles, as much of that as they can keep together, put up big numbers over the next couple of years. He can compile stats and still compete for championships, I think. Yep.
Just about staying healthy for him as he gets older. Obviously, he struggled a little bit with health at times this season. But I'm not too worried about that. I think that's just another feather in his cap as far as long-term value because, I think that is still the trajectory for him. Even if it ends up being borderline, I would expect that to be the trajectory. Sorry.
We,
someone at my door. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
We should mention Cup too. We
Yes.
forgot to mention Jamar Chase
Absolutely
as
should
another
mention Cup.
hobby name, but Cup, obviously, this is a massive outlier. Haven't even looked at Offensive Player of the Year. Is he going to win Offensive
Yeah, I
Player of the
believe he's
Year?
going to win Offensive
I would
Player.
imagine
Yes,
he's going to run away with that. Yeah, he has to.
What the hell were the Bucs doing? How did that play happen? Like, I honestly don't understand how you let him get straight down the seam like
crazy,
that.
crazy.
I really don't understand.
I happen to be on the road. Funny aside here. I happen to be on the road as that game was closing out, thinking like, this thing's over with. It was 27-3 when I left the house, and my brother-in-law texts me and says he did it again. I'm like, what? So I pull up ESPN, and sure shit, it's 27-27, and I just texted him, I effing hate Tom Brady. Watching him do it again, I couldn't believe it. I was so excited for Stafford, and then he pulls it off. Stafford pulls it off, hits Cup down the seam, massive play, gets him in range. So just incredible. But on the Cup front, you could have purchased his 2017 silver PSA 10 as cheap as $87.
Amazing.
Right as the season was kicking off. Again, obvious outlier, massive outlier. You're never going to see this type of performance again, especially from someone as cheap as Cup was. But that same card just sold for $415.
Yep.
So we are seeing this, and we don't think that these are long-term investments. I wouldn't be investing in Cup for long-term outside of just having him for a PC. But cool 377% ROI on somebody like Cooper Kupp. If you can make these off-season buys on undervalued fantasy assets, undervalued guys that put up massive numbers, and then they make this type of run to boot, I think you can make some quick profits. Just understand what your investment timeline is, I think would be the biggest story here. Like if you're buying Jonathan Taylor, you're not buying Jonathan Taylor to hold for 10 years.
No.
Right? You're hopefully buying to flip at some point in season.
Yep. And some of these guys you could do in bulk. I mean, the Cup card, obviously it was silver only that year. So like the pop on those aren't crazy, but 217 pop on that card. If you were able to pick up 10 or 15 in the offseason at $80 a pop, look what you're sitting pretty right now with some real profits. But it hasn't done much over the last week because it's up so high already. I would expect this card to have a little bit more room though, if they're heading to a Super Bowl. So crazy, just absolutely crazy on the Cup front. No doubt about it. Just
to hop back to the Jamar Chase and the Bengals real quick before we move on to the bell of the ball last weekend. I mean, Jamar Chase's, there's not a whole lot of product out. I know Mosaic is out now. We talked with Smiz. I know Al Smizzle is ripping through a lot of Mosaic product, and I think Immaculate is out or just dropped recently, right? But just kind of keep an eye on this Kaboom card from Absolute. The numbers on this thing are absolutely insane. Of late, we're starting to see Jamar Chase's Kaboom go for $800, $900, $1,000 raw, which I think is just crazy. So again, just some love for the skill position players. If you can identify them, get in on them early, and then whether you're holding on for a big season like Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp had, or just flipping for quick profits. But we are seeing a little bit more hobby love for some of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely true. And while we're backpedaling quickly, I just think Jimmy Garoppolo is a worthy conversation. Do you think the Niners have a chance this weekend?
I had the tweet a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago now, that I had no interest in betting on a team with guys with as much swag as a left tackle in Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, the greatest wide receiver / running back in the league right now, just an absolute baller, and then Mike McDaniel, who is the coolest guy in the NFL right now. The Chiefs.
Unbelievable. I did it. It's so funny you say that. I did a Mike McDaniel YouTube dive today on his interviews and stuff. I had never done it. I didn't realize he's like this complete young stoner, nerd guy. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, the thing is, he not only looks just like Levitan, but he sounds and acts just like him tim too. So it's perfect. It's perfect. But no, 49ers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel. I have no interest in betting against this team, but there's no way in hell they go on the road again and beat Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp, all of those pieces on the defensive side with Jimmy Garoppolo for a third time this season. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening.
I'm with you.
But talk to me about Jimmy Garoppolo's card market.
All I would say is it's still not very high. So they are a hot team. There's no doubt about it. They're winning in spite of Garoppolo. Yep. That is also very true. But if you think they do get to the Super Bowl and this guy has to say maybe a chance at a repeat redemption from the Super Bowl a couple years ago with the Chiefs or something like that. And he has 2 weeks to get healthy, and all he needs to do is make enough big plays, and he gets a ring on his finger. Yeah, it was probably still in spite of him and because of Mike Shanahan and everything, but at that point, the guy's market's going to go up. So if you want to try to buy in bulk right now, that's what I would be doing. That's what would be my play. Like I'd be buying like lots of like $100 Topps Chrome Garoppolos, stuff like that. You could find some stuff like that for like $100 and just like see if any of them look good enough to grade. Like you could, that's the play I'd be making for someone like that. Cause it's not often that you get to have that kind of play for one of the final 4 quarterbacks left. I guess if it was like Blake Bortles a couple of years ago, you probably could have, it didn't work out so great for that. But yeah, I mean, that's the play I would be making, but I'm with you. I don't think there's any real chance.
Well, just quick on that too. We're in such an echo chamber with fantasy Twitter and DFS Twitter. Like everyone in our circle hates Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. Like no one's excited about this guy. Every time, watching that game against Green Bay, every time he threw the ball outside the numbers, I was just like, holy God, that's a pick 6 waiting to happen.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't think they're ever going to win because of Jimmy Garoppolo, but if he's a super winning quarterback, he low-key has a little bit of swag to him,
he's confident. He's confident.
He's confident as all hell. Obviously good looking. We know that about him. Sexy
my God,
individual.
Cody, just a sidebar here. My wife had never seen Jimmy Garoppolo before like 2 weeks ago, or at least she never realized she did because sports are on all the time and she's not paying attention at all. We were at my sister's, and so we were all watching, the first round, the wild card weekend, and she has never been more obsessed with an athlete in her entire life. I mean, true, like thinks he is the most attractive person that's ever walked this earth. Makes me feel real good about myself every time he's on. So when I told her that he's still alive for next weekend, she's very happy that maybe she gets to have another glance at Jimmy G. But yeah, I mean, definitely has the confidence, the swag, and the looks. That's for sure.
Happy honeymoon phase to you. Your wife is already drooling over other men. Yes, that's just how married life goes.
Exactly.
But the running up to Robbie Gould and saying F the Packers, and the thing about him is if you are betting on his card market, if he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, he's undoubtedly going to have some some post game press conference quotes that get circulated, the air, the hype, whatever it may be around just his persona, as much as the DFS and Twitter world, our little world, seem to dislike this guy. You're going to see the news cycle on Jimmy Garoppolo get pretty hot.
Yep, absolutely. Very true. I had a card here I was going to show. I don't know where it is. I got like a stained glass from last year's Prism of Jimmy Garoppolo that I just have out ready to make some moves on if he somehow pulls it out. But like, it's still only a $40 card right now, so I'm not.
But that card is going to have to immediately go into your wife's PC.
You know what? Maybe that's just her next birthday gift or something like that. Oh yeah, here we go. Here it is. Stained glass Jimmy G. And
that is a good looking card.
Yeah, these cards are awesome. I got the Mahomes one of this too. I have some other stuff that I'm ready to sell too. Like when Nick Bosa makes some sacks, I got some like blue prism stuff. Yeah. These are like $15-$20 cards, whatever it is. But I'm ready to make the moves before this weekend. So yeah, that's what you got to do. But yeah, I think it'll be a pretty fun game actually, where I think I would expect the Rams to come out on top though.
All right, we went long enough, because if the Saturday games were pre-dinner drinks and the early Sunday game was an appetizer, this nightcap was the main course. It was the dessert. It was everything we could have ever asked for with this Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes showdown. I don't even know where to begin with the game, because the game was a bit of a snooze fest early. Not much happening. Looked like it was going to trend under early on, and then in the last, 2 minutes in overtime, there were 100 points scored, and each quarterback threw for 500 yards and 10 touchdowns. And our boy, if you're following along on YouTube, a guy that helped propel Gary to a 10th place finish in the 4-game Millionaire Maker, Gabe Davis, man. Gabe Davis went absolutely nuts, went 8 for 201 and 4, I believe. Anyway, this game is just so insane that I don't even know where to begin with.
That's it. That's where you begin. You say Josh Allen who, Patrick Mahomes who, invest in Gabriel Davis. He is the next Jerry Rice. It is the safest investment as they could come. Best player in the league. No, I'm just messing around. But shout out to me for flag planting Gabe Davis on Established Million. That was fun.
Such a sick flag plant. Came in at like 7% owned in the Millie. Just crazy.
But yeah, I mean, everyone's saying it. You talk about sounding like sports radio host, but is it hyperbolic to say it was the best game you've ever seen? Because it was the best game I've ever seen.
It's the best game I have ever seen. I'm young, and my football knowledge, as we've frequently discussed on this podcast, is very it doesn't go back very far. But this was the best game that I've ever seen by far.
Yeah, me too, by far. And that is proven forward by the fact that Josh Allen loses this game. In what would have been, either of them would have been totally worthy and advancing to have a chance to really make the Super Bowl here. And his card market spikes. very rare feat you see in the hobby coming off a loss. I'm sure Gabriel Davis is also went up a little bit the next day, but Josh Allen, what a performance, man. Just like gutsy as all hell. We talk about his base PSA 10, so that was, pop of almost 1,300 now, rising. But yeah, we don't see the crazy pops on that 28 team just because, it was before they were crazy printing for NFL for Prism. Basketball, they started to that year, but for football, they didn't as much. So that's why it's only around 1,300, not too crazy. But yeah, man, just even over the last couple of days, spiked all the way up to almost $700. It's a card that had been sitting in that mid $500 range heading into the playoffs. So yeah, good for Josh Allen. Really, really, we'll talk about, let's talk about the conversation. Give me 2 minutes on my Giants and, hoping to get some of, Josh Allen's play callers heading my way. But, I don't think it matters who's calling plays for him. If it's Brian Dable, if it's Ken Dorsey, or if it's somebody else entirely. Gabe Davis is around, Steph Diggs is around, Dawson Knox is around. Offensive line solid. Still one of the best defenses in football. A shame they had to go out this way, but at least it was in one of the best games of all time. And Josh Allen, my friends, is here to stay. One of the best investments you can have in the sport. Nothing much else to say there.
Yeah, just up across the board everywhere. As you mentioned, doesn't matter, high end, low end, mid tier. We had even gotten to the point where we moved away, even talking about the base stuff. But his base stuff being up after getting bounced is absolutely crazy. His Silver Prism Auto is up 7% since getting bounced.
I have that card.
Yeah. Up to in a PSA 10 rookie autograph silver is up to 4,300 last sold, up 7%.
Oh hell yeah, that's great for me. So I actually hit that card on a break this season. I went to
wow.
I split a Prism 2017 hobby box with one other guy on a break. And we basically drafted teams, and this was like right at the beginning of the season, and so before Baker was complete dust. And he's a Browns fan, so he basically said to me before, like, I'll take the Browns. You pick whichever of the other big quarterbacks. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take the Bills. And he's like, and then we'll draft the rest of the team. So like, I think he ended up getting Lamar, but like, I don't care. I had Josh Allen. So, I hit this silver auto out of there. So I haven't graded it yet, but glad to know if it does. It looks good to me. So if it grades, it's a $4,400 card almost. That's music to my ears. Card. Yeah.
I think, and you mentioned this with Burrow a little bit too. Like if these guys go out, in a blazing glory, and especially once you reach this stratosphere, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow is quickly approaching this tier, not quite there yet. But if you go out in this blazing glory in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes and it's this, 42-36 battle and everyone's tuned in for it, you're not going to see the markets dip much. And there might be some natural ebb and flow throughout the offseason with Josh Allen. But I wouldn't be shocked for this thing just to level off and start to pick back up next year. And even if Dable leaves, I think that they've got the pieces to keep this train rolling. The one thing that I think you could say and talk about being a little bit sports radio-y, I just hope that this Josh Allen and this Bills team is not snake bit and just runs into this Patrick Mahomes buzzsaw for the entirety of his career, because that would just be a travesty if we don't see Josh Allen in a Super Bowl.
No, I think it'll be one of those great heavyweight, fights where both guys get their wins. I really do think so. Like I think we'll see more of this, and I really hope we do, whether it's divisional round, wildcard round, championship round. I think we'll see it quite a bit, this matchup. The same way I really do think these four guys, the two of them and Herbert and Burrow, as long as they get the real infrastructure there in LA for Herbert to finally stop, fooling around with all that Chargers nonsense. I think it's these four guys just kind of shuffling the decks back and forth, with each other for different AFC appearances for a long time. So, this was the most watched divisional round playoff game in 5 years, had 43 million viewers.
That's crazy.
Those kind of numbers on today's end on TV for regular TV it's just, they don't exist anymore. So, everyone watched this game. It's part of the reason it went up. Word of mouth got around, turn on this game. And just flipping to the other side real quick, I hope you listened to us in week 5 or 6 when we were talking about Patrick Mahomes, because we told you to buy, man. People were saying, oh, he's figured out what's wrong with the Chiefs. Is Patrick Mahomes broken? Was he overrated all along? Blah, 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 blah. And man, what is he right now? I mean, you noticed the second that game started, I was watching with my brother-in-law, and I turned to him and I said, man, he's got the eye of the tiger tonight. Like he does not want to lose. This is the most confident and aggressive I've seen him play in a while. And he's turned that corner back into being the best quarterback in football. He's 10% owned at TFS. Like that's stupid. That's just stupid. And yeah, I mean, both guys here to stay. Not real buy opportunities for either of them right now because they're peaked. When the offseason hits, depending on how this plays out for Mahomes, you might have a little bit of opportunity, but until next season comes and one of them goes on another, maybe 2 or 3 game downstretch, your buying windows are mostly closed for these dudes.
First things first, like we really got to get this out of the way. If your wife ever tells you that 13 seconds isn't long enough, just point her to Patrick Mahomes. That's plenty of time. Plenty of time.
When you got those guys.
As you mentioned, ever since we thought Patrick Mahomes was quote unquote figured out or solved by the cover 2 defense, Adam Levitan had the tweet, went 190 of 263, 72% completion rate, 319.5 pass yards per game, 20 TDs, 2 INTs, 6-1 record. This is why I'm so confident in when we can talk about championship weekend here now too. This is why I'm so confident in taking chalk this weekend with the Chiefs advancing over Cincinnati and then the Rams advancing over the 49ers. I think that Patrick Mahomes is just on another level right now. He's taken stuff underneath, something that he wasn't doing earlier this year. He was forcing the ball a little bit, had a bit of a turnover issue, but he's taken what the defense is giving him now, as cliche as that sounds. But just this Chiefs team, I don't see this Bengals team coming away victorious this weekend. I think Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs advance, and I think we get to see him play against the Rams again. So
yeah,
hopefully looking forward to that matchup. Would be a ton of fun. I would love to see these two offenses face off against each other.
So would I. And I mean, that's what the great ones do, right? Like the all-time greats adjust. They adjust and they figure it out because they have that talent and they're that good. And he's proven it. Maybe there'll be some other revolutionary defensive coordinator like Todd Bowles to come out of the woodwork and figure him out for a couple more games. But guess what? If they do, he'll figure that out too, because he's probably the best quarterback of all time. It's just how it is. And he's so young. And so we are fortunate enough to hopefully have another decade plus of this. So, man, not much to say here other than, take a look at what happens this coming weekend, with him. I think, if you need some money and he wins this weekend, I think that his market might hit high as it hasn't in a while coming into that Super Bowl, because I think people would think this one is more of a sure thing than he's had in a while, just with how hot they are. I think they're playing a different sport, even than the Rams, who are playing really, really good football right now. I just think the Chiefs are on another level. Whoever won that game between the Chiefs or the Bills, I think would have been a really large favorite to run the table here. So I think, that kind of narrative would really pick up steam, I think, heading into the Super Bowl. So, if you do need to sell off some homes, like I was telling Cody before the show, like I'm going to take some of my lower end Mahomes slabs. I got some somewhere sitting around here, just like some silvers, like, second and third year stuff, fourth year stuff, mosaics, things like that maybe a couple $100 cards. I'm probably going to offload them around that time. Like my color blast and some of my shorter Mahomes stuff. Like I'm not really interested in moving because, if you have color blast kabooms, like high end rookie stuff of Mahomes, like downtown inserts, these things, like, you don't have to sell that. Like super short print, like my color blast, man, like what are those, 20 of those in the world? Like why would I, unless I really need the money? And like, like I bought a house, I'm married, I'm gonna have kids one day. Like maybe I do. And maybe that's one of the cards I look to sell. But like, barring some crazy unforeseen circumstance, like that's the kind of stuff you just hold, and there's no reason to let it go anywhere.
And if this stuff is out of your price range, which for, the rookie Mahomes stuff, a lot of it is going to be out of your price range at this point, look to fractional. We've talked about fractional a lot. There's plenty of Mahomes stuff on Dibs. Make sure you're looking at, recent sales. Make sure you're not buying something that's already overvalued by the secondary market. But I had a few shares in a Mahomes National Treasures RPA numbered out of 5 on Rally. And that thing just got a buyout offer, which I voted to decline, knowing what was coming up.
Why don't I ever see these emails? What is wrong with me?
Yeah, we needed you to vote no because it got approved. 66%. Yeah. So heading into what I think is going to be another Chiefs Super Bowl, his third Super Bowl appearance in as many years. And it sold for like 7% above IPO. That thing had dipped, obviously, with the market tanking a little bit, and secondary markets on fractional sites not fully appreciating the assets that they have. But it just sold at 7% above IPO as we're heading into what is going to be another Super Bowl victory.
I guess people just need the money.
I think, and its liquidity. And I just don't think you got to be careful about that on these fractional sites. I don't think the secondary markets are fully mature yet. I don't think they fully understand how to price these assets. So if they get an offer above what they bought it at, whether it's a fair offer or not, most people are approving these, unfortunately, and it is shareholder weighted. So I had 66% approval. I didn't own enough to to stop the vote, stop the count. So it went through. It sold. I took my 7% or whatever it was profit, and we're moving on. But long story short, just keep your eyes out. There could be deals out there on fractional sites like Dibs and Rally and Collectible and Otis and all these sites out there that are doing really great work. Just keep an eye out for getting stuff that's fairly valued.
Yep. Great point. And I have a perfect time. I actually, right before the show, got a DM from a fan of the show. Shout out to Evan B. Messaged me, yo, big fan of the pod, about to sign up for Dibs now. I've heard you guys talk about it. Any sign up code or anything I should use? The answer to that question is yes. Actually, we do have a link you should go through for Dibs. It is dibs.app.link/etc. So if you actually just sign up using through that link, we'll our friends will know you came through us. So shout out to you, Evan. Enjoy Dibs. I think the platform's getting better and better. By the day, really, and they're going to keep getting some great inventory. I know they're seeking out some pretty grail cards on the regular. So, man, it's a great point. Sad to hear about that on Rally with that card, because those are the types of cards that are my thesis that I like to be investing in. But just opened up Rally to take a look and see if it's reflected in my account, and I ended up just buying 2 shares of a Bored Ape right now. So
my man.
So so there we are. Fun times.
Making trades on the podcast. Yep. Cheers to you. Okay, so do we have an official establish the collection pick for championship weekend?
I can add a 1 out of 250 hat. Do you know about this? What are these?
Oh, hell
things?
Yeah.
I could just do that?
Yeah, you can add that to your order. I wish I was wearing my Rally hat right now, but they do. I mean,
I haven't been involved with one of these things yet where I can buy a physical thing with my
thing. So I'm gonna shout out to Rally. They do merch really well. And Gary mentioned the Bored Ape stuff. We talked with Smith last week about Bored Apes hitting 100 ETH floor for the Super Bowl. Go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. But you can get your hands on some fractional shares of Bored Apes.
I 1 of 250.
Incredible.
I mean, how does that not go up in value? 1 of 250 for this Bored Ape?
1 of 250. And if you wear it, millionaire maker celebrity Gary Hartman, it's got to go up in value.
My bags of my $14 worth of Bored Ape. That's all I'm doing. I
love it.
Sorry, this show just went completely sideways. But yeah.
Can we lock in an official establish the collection conference championship picks and Super Bowl pick? I think that we're both on the Chiefs side.
Let's go with the chalk.
And are we going to take chalk in the NFC, or are we rolling with the Super Gremlins? Are we rolling with Debo and Trent Williams and Mike McDaniel and sexy man Jimmy G? Or
I do think they have a chance, but based off your rambling on your how much you really don't think they do, I would never want to do that to you and put your name on an official Niners pick. So and my heart says as the Rams as well. So no, I think it's the Rams. I think it's possibly fake sharp Sean McVay getting back to another Super Bowl and chance to redeem himself after a pretty putrid performance a couple years ago against the Pats. So,
All right. Agreed. Hey, we just talked Bills and Brian Daboll. We got to give your Giants some quick love here, because they finally, I don't even think we've talked about them finally getting rid of Joe Judge.
Yeah.
Finally getting rid of the GM, and we're here, baby. We've got Bills. Was he the assistant GM? Bills assistant GM, Joe Shane, recently hired, and Brian Daboll, baby, just completed a second interview. It's looking likely. Gary stamped 75% odds that Brian Daboll is the next head coach of the New York Giants. Talk to me, baby.
Yeah,
Talk to me about the New York Giants and Daniel Jones.
So we're recording this on Wednesday. You'll probably hear this by on Tuesday night, where it's crossed the Wednesday threshold in my time zone. Tuesday night, and so you'll get this out by Thursday morning usually, or Thursday early afternoon. My guess is we as in the Giants are interviewing our defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, tomorrow. We're interviewing Brian Flores on Thursday. At that point, we applied to the Rooney Rule. Then we're also interviewing Leslie Frazier for an in-person interview on Friday. I think after that Friday interview, by Friday afternoon, I would be I is my prediction for when we announce Brian Daboll as the next head coach of the New York Giants. I really hope so. Him and Joe Shane are tied all the way back to days in Miami. Yeah, I mean, talking about shows going off the rails, I was on a live show with Andrew Wiggins for the NBA when Joe Judge was announced fired. Kind of like I was right now. I just have my phone next to me. Usually I don't actually. Usually I have my phone like somewhere else or turned upside down. And I get the Twitter notification, Joe Judge is fired. We were like in the middle of talking about Brandon Ingram's value on the night. And I just completely stopped the show out of nowhere. And I just screamed out of celebration that they finally did the right thing to wipe the slate clean. And I had high hopes for Joe Judge when he was hired, but there was really no way around this anymore. They had to start fresh, and finally bringing in a guy that I really believe in here in Joe Schoen, an outside hire. Whether or not he looked like he was kind of the favorite from the start, they did hire, but they did interview a bunch of candidates for GM. So for the first time in a long time, we are able to have some optimism for the Giants. It's not, a lot of optimism. There's a lot of problems with the roster where it currently stands, and they don't have much cap room, but that's what you do when you bring in one of the best GM candidates. The assistant GM to the Buffalo Bills been, the right-hand man to Brandon Beane for a long time. And, just amazing praise brought in his way. So I'm really excited about what Joe Schoen's bringing to the Giants. And, all signs point, and I really hope that it's true that Brian Dable's coming in. And I mean, the Giants haven't had an offensive line like that really ever, but just a player's guy. People love playing for him. One of the most innovative offensive minds. I think he would be able to, compile a really good coaching staff because people really respect him. Worked under Saban, worked under Belichick, obviously has worked under McDermott now for the last couple of years. To me, somebody that should have been considered over the last couple seasons for head coaching jobs. And if we can get him in the door for the Giants, man, I've been kind of Giants performance over the last couple of years. This is a team that, just to finish my tangent here, meant more to me than anything in the world. Like anything in the world, it got me through my childhood. Like in more ways than one. Like I didn't miss a game for 10 years. I would drive home from Maryland, from college at the University of Maryland to go to games every Sunday when they were home. It was something that was religion for me. And what the last decade has turned into has actually, it saddened me so much to the core that I can't even take it, that I'm just numb to it. So to have a sliver of optimism is good for a while. So let's bring this thing home. Let's hire Brian Dable and let's start righting the ship, starting with the draft, where we have 2 top 10 picks. So excited for the future of the Giants for at least for a minute here.
After that rant, I don't even want to try and pump my Daniel Jones bags here because I'm just happy for you as a sports fan, as getting back to your childhood roots of cheering for hopefully what is to be a good New York Giants football team for the next decade or more.
No, but let's pump our Jones bags quickly, because we were talking also before the air. I mean, unless something really weird shakes out, like a Russell Wilson walks in the door or something, in all likelihood, Daniel Jones is the quarterback for the Giants next year. They're in cap hell. He doesn't have the cap hit yet. He's still on the rookie deal. This rookie quarterback class is nothing to write home about. So unless Joe Schoen really falls in love with one of these guys, which is possible, we talked about, Patrick Mahomes was the 10th pick. Josh Allen was like the 7th. We have 5 and 7. So it's possible that he does fall in love with, but there's no consensus like great quarterback prospect in this draft. So unless there's that happen, I don't see a world in which Daniel Jones isn't the starter for one more year, and potentially under Brian Dable. Listen, I'm not part of this Giants Twitter that's saying he's the next, he's going to turn him into Josh Allen or whatever. There's only one Josh Allen. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. But there's no doubt that if he stays healthy, he'd put up his best numbers under a Brian Dable system. Sure. I mean, it's just it happened by default. So, it's a decent place to be as long as Daniel Jones is that starter for next season.
Silver PSA 10 selling for $81 on Daniel Jones. I mean, it's low risk. And if nothing else, if you can find one going at auction or listed at buy now on eBay, if nothing else, you guys can live along with Gary and I our Daniel Jones bags, but down 90% over the last 6 months. I mean, and rightfully so. It's unfortunate. Hopefully, 100%. Hopefully he gets a shot. Hopefully he is the guy to help Dable bring this thing home for the Giants, but we'll see. More so fun than anything else, and more so just having fun with our guy Daniel Jones.
Yep.
Quickly before we wrap things up today, we got to talk this eBay authentication news that dropped today. Every time we get ready to record and thinking through show topics, it seems like the hobby gives us kind of another hot topic to discuss. So first things first, I think seeing the announcement today from eBay, the first thing that I noticed, it was pretty neat to see that eBay, they announced during the announcement, they acknowledged that the sports card vertical is growing significantly faster than its total marketplace. And the category saw 2 billion in transactions in the first half of 2021, which is the same amount the platform did for the entire year of 2020 in the trading card category. So I thought that was pretty neat just to see from the jump more so this authentication thing, starting immediately, they will eBay will begin authenticating raw cards that are worth at least $750 and will soon include graded cards that sell for north of $250. So what does that mean for us as buyers and sellers? When a buyer makes a purchase, the seller ships the card to authenticators. In this case, it'll be CSG. The authenticator will take up to 2 days to authenticate the card, and if the item passes the authentication, it will be shipped to the buyer with 2-day secure delivery. And if not, if it fails, then it'll be sent back to the seller and the buyer is refunded. So as of now, eBay is handling all the fees, giving you all of the information you need just to ship it out like you would normally as a seller. And as a buyer, you'll receive it the same way. You pay your seller and it'll go through the authentication process, assuming everything checks out. Then you'll receive the card same way that you would normally. Obviously, Gary, you've built a pretty substantial business, and I can see over your left shoulder there that you've got a ton of cards probably ready to go out the door.
Yep.
What does this mean for you? I mean, you had some takeaways instantly. And you've had some time to sit on it. What does it mean?
When I first sent you an article, I hadn't even read it all the way through. I mean, I'm of two minds. Like, you know what? If at the end of the day, it's nothing, it's no pain off my back as far as my process, like where I'm listing, I'm selling, and I'm shipping. It's not that big a deal. And I guess it's good overall for, just overall ethics of the hobby. But,
yeah.
I know that they've done this with shoes, with sneakers, and
watches, purses. I think all kinds of.
I know there's been some issues with the sneaker stuff, like where people have sent in things that they know are 100% real that have gotten deemed fake. So like it's just an imperfect process in that sense. And if you're really strapped for money and you put a high end card up, like your funds are now probably going to get held for a couple more days while this goes through this process. So that part's a little bit annoying. But a plus of it is as I said, it'll kind of bring some more legitimacy to the hobby. And two, you probably should never really have to deal with lost cards in the mail that you're responsible for, right? As long as they reach the eBay people, they're responsible for that card at that point. So I think that actually helps a little bit. Like I've sold thousands of cards on eBay now, and I've probably had 3 or 4 that just get lost in the mail, and you have to open up these cases. And like a lot of time you just lose, the money as the seller because you have to refund the buyer. So you lose the money and the card. So, in this case, hopefully, that might help a little bit. So that's kind of something maybe not being spoken about a little bit here, but it's still, to me, just a little bit of a pain in the ass that they're adding the step. But at the end of it, once it's normalized, and I guess it wouldn't be too big a deal. And, a lot of 80% of the stuff I do, not with slabs. With slabs, it probably is over this threshold, the 250, but of the raw, 80% is still under the 750 threshold, at least for now. So, nothing's going to change too much for me. Sometimes I'll sell a raw card that's worth more than that for sure. And, you jump through whatever hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah. And if it helps you as a buyer too, protects you a little bit, making sure you're not getting cards that are fake and getting scammed. Then
my perspective is like 90% sided as a seller. Obviously I buy on eBay, but that's a great
for
point.
sure.
We should talk about it from the buyer's perspective.
And as long as the other thing that I think of that was interesting that I saw, I was reading the TechCrunch article, so I'm sure there's different variations of that article out there, but eBay is handling the cost associated with the authentication process as of now. But they also made sure to note that could change in the future. So if this adds an added cost to the seller or the buyer, whatever the case may be, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on as well. Hopefully not. As you mentioned, a lot of this stuff, especially with just raw cards, not dealing with too much over 750 raw as of right now. When the graded cards get added, that'll be a whole different ball game.
Yep, exactly.
But interesting thing to keep an eye on. Not a whole lot to discuss right now. Hopefully just adds, as you mentioned, a little bit more legitimacy to the hobby. Do you want to get us out of here really quick, because we got baseball Hall of Fame announcements, and the Baseball Writers Association of America fails us again.
Crazy, man.
Talk to us about this Hall of Fame class. Big Papi gets in. Barry Bonds is out. Roger Clemens is out. Any general hobby takeaways, or just takeaways in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is worth noting. The David Ortiz I think is fine. I don't know what his market's like because he's my least favorite baseball player of all time. So I've never really looked into it. I
didn't even think about that when you mentioned David Ortiz got in. I didn't even put the Red Sox Yankees connection together.
He's got a Fleer base PSA 10. It's got a pop of 1100. That seems to be his flagship rookie card, and it is valued at 600 on Card Ladder, up 6% over the last 2 weeks on 3 sales. That'll go up a little bit now that you got a bump. So that'll probably settle in around like a $700 card. That's totally fine if you're a Ortiz collector. Cool. my bigger takeaway here is on the Bonds Clemens side of it. It's been trending this way. They have reached highs in their percentage of votes this year, but it was their last year on the official ballot for not reaching the threshold. So, it's just they're not getting in unless it's by that special committee that votes again in whatever it is, 10, 15 years on these guys, 20 years. So it's a shame because the all-time hits leader, not in the Hall of Fame, Pete Rose. The all-time home runs hitter, not in the Hall of Fame, Barry Bonds. The all-time Cy Young winner, Roger Clemens, not in the Hall of Fame. You can argue on the steroid stuff, but anyone that I see that puts out their ballots, which are people that I respect, like the Ken Rosenthal, those guys, they voted for these guys because at the end of the day, the Hall of Fame is a museum, and it tells the history of the sport, and all these guys should be in. But it doesn't take away like the Barry Bonds Hall of Fame before he ever injected a needle into his butt or arm or wherever he did it. So, it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. But from a hobby perspective, it hurts. It hurts because I know there were some people speculating, hey, well, they're getting kind of close. Like maybe they could squeeze their way in. But nope, not happening. I do think if it did and they were ever legitimized by the sport again, it would give real credence to some of those flagship cards that these guys had. I mean, the Bonds Pirates cards from those late 80s were big cards for a while. And, I know so like his Topps Traded and his Topps Tiffany in a PSA 10 or whatever still sells really well. But, I think those cards would have jumped up from like $400 cards to grand plus if they were able to squeeze into the Hall of Fame. So it's a shame. It's just a shame.
Yeah, you mentioned just having Barry Bonds a Hall of Fame career before, quote unquote, all that happened. 411 home runs, 445 stolen bases from 1986 to 1998. Right. He was the only one to do that. So truly a Hall of Famer. Just crazy that he is not going to be there. As you mentioned, a museum of baseball, and some of the game's best players won't be there. It is a shame. Good to see Big Papi get in, if nothing else, just to tilt you a little bit.
Deserving. I mean, he cheated too, but it's all the same stuff. Yeah, for sure.
All right, we can get out of there on that. Lots of NFL talk continuing. I hope we get the big showdown that we're all awaiting with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Real quick, just to hop back a second, I want to ask you, because I saw this tweeted out from StarStock. Obviously, you guys know who StarStock is, marketplace for sports cards trading and buying and selling. They tweeted out, what would be bigger for the hobby, Patrick Mahomes winning a Super Bowl or Joe Burrow winning a Super Bowl? Do you have a take?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Burrow would be bigger for the hobby because Mahomes has a less of a threshold to reach. He's already won the Super Bowl. He's won an MVP. People expect him to continue to do those things. But if Burrow somehow did it in his second year here, coming off an injury, while his stuff is just kind of on its way up, that would have a bigger impact on the hobby for sure. Also, it would legitimize this ultra modern year, right? That kind of that loop, like similar to the Zion Ja year, like its counterpart was Herbert Burrow, right? So it's a lot of product out there, but it would legitimize it kind of in a way.
Well, we would have this true Mount Rushmore of modern / ultra modern NFL quarterbacks with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and obviously Justin Herbert, who is still in that category. But 4 guys who are going to be making noise for many years to come. Hopefully they do big things this weekend with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. We'll see what happens. Hopefully our picks come to fruition. Hopefully we see a Rams versus Chiefs Super Bowl. I think that's going to do it for us. For Gary, I'm Cody. We'll see you next week.
Enjoy the games, everyone.